Hey everyone, welcome to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some of which I grew up with and some of which are new to me. Today's game is one of the former. This is Encounter by Paul Woakes, released in 1983 by Synapse Software, developed by Novagen Software, who would go on to create the Mercenary series, some of my all-time favourite games. So I'm sure we'll come to those at some point. So Encounter is basically a Battlezone clone, but rather than using vector graphics, it makes use of some impressive sprite work, basically. So this is, I think, one of the earliest games I ever played where you had a first-person view in which you could freely move around, see things happening, and things would scale reasonably smoothly and convincingly. I always particularly enjoyed this because as a kid I had an absolute obsession with games that unfolded from a cockpit view, and this obviously is unfolding from a cool tank cockpit view. You got the radar in the middle there, you got those warning lights. So the red light means one of those missiles is coming for you, the yellow light means that there is just an enemy in the area, and the blue light, I can't remember what that means. I'm sure it'll come up though. Roy. So the aim in Encounter is to basically survive your way through each of the levels. You see in the top right corner there is a an E marker with a number on it. Those are the number of enemies you need. Oh, that's what the blue light means. Blue light means someone who's shooting at you. What was I saying? The E marker, yes. The E marker is how many enemies you need to destroy to beat the level. At which point this happens. You go through the big black door of doom, and then you have this incredibly difficult segment where you have to just dodge blobs. Oh dear. There we go. That is supposed to be like hyperspace or something like that. I never quite understood how a tank was supposed to be going into hyperspace, but you know, it is what it is. Did like the sound effects in this. So you've got that sound of the missile approaching was genuinely terrifying when I was a kid, and it's still pretty terrifying now, to be honest, especially when combined with that warning light. But if you listen, there's a lot of more subtle stuff as well, like when if we ever see a normal enemy again. Yeah, when the normal enemies appear, you can sort of hear how close they are based on how loud the sound is. And they make different noises depending on what they're doing, whether they're moving, whether they're about to shoot at you. The chunks they explode into, they make a noise when they hit your tank. They don't actually damage you, but they make a noise. And there's that satisfying crunch when you run into one of those obelisks. So that's pretty much everything there is to this game. There was an Atari ST version of this as well that came out a bit later. That had pre-rendered, ray-traced as they referred to it at the time, graphics. So it played almost identically though. It just had a nicer look and feel to it. But this original version was from 1983, so a very early example of a proper first-person game on a home computer, running at a pretty speedy, impressive frame rate, and certainly with some cool gameplay as well. Alright, we'll see if we can actually do this time. It was fine with the initial boost bit. It's when you had this... No! See, the thing is, if you fail that, you have to go back and basically do the level again. Which is not really a problem, because you keep your score and everything, so... It's just, if you can't do that hyperspace bit, then you will never get off level 1, basically. Not sure what the S4 in the corner or the 5-4 is. I wonder if that's lives or something. S for ships. I think technically, you're supposed to be in a spaceship rather than a tank. But it certainly handles very much like a tank to me. No! Yeah, that's definitely lives because it went down one when I got hit there. So, because I grew up with this, and I actually played Battlezone a bit later, I actually like this quite a bit more than Battlezone, even though it's a very similar sort of game. It just feels a lot faster paced, and more enjoyable to me. I mean, Battlezone does have the cool sort of independent control of your tank treads and stuff like that, but there's something nicely pure about this. It's simple, it's abstract, it's fun, and it's terrifying. Alright, this time we're going to do it. Watch this. See, part of my trouble with sequences like this is I always assume I need to keep facing the same direction when, in fact, it's nothing of the sort. No! So close. Anyway, yeah, it is nothing of the sort. You just need to dodge stuff. You don't need to make sure you're always facing north or whatever, because there is no north. It's not that advanced. There's other cool stuff like you can bounce your shots off those obelisks, and so it was really quite an advanced game for the time. And you think early 80s, the other stuff that was going on at the time. And Paul Woakes was always good at sort of wringing the very best out of Atari computers. So Mercenary, for example, which we'll probably look at in one of our M sessions. I'm not going to promise it's in this first batch, but Mercenary was a 3D polygonal first-person open-world adventure on the Atari 8-bit, which you had a whole city to explore. I mean, okay, it wasn't as detailed as the kind of city you'd expect to see in a game today, but it was seriously impressive for the time. Just purely because people had never played a game that had that much freedom in it before. And that then went on and got 2 sequels on Atari ST called Damocles and Mercenary 3, both of which are still amazing games. In both of those there is a whole solar system to explore, so lots of different planets to look at, each of which has got its own sort of character, colour scheme, things to do, characters to meet, puzzles to solve, items to find. Alright, come on, don't mess it up, don't mess it up, don't mess it up, don't mess it up, don't mess it up! I did it! There we go. Alright. Okay, so when you reach another level, it's the same, but a different colour. And also the enemies are a bit more aggressive. You can see in this case they're a lot quicker to start shooting at you. No. Oh, for a strafe button. Oh no, strafing wouldn't happen until many years later. And this it is. Turn and move. Which, like I say, was still pretty revolutionary at the time, because most first-person 3D stuff had been sort of tile-based movement at best. So 90-degree turns, moving forward a tile at a time. This was sort of full 3D. One of the things I did like about this is this is one of the games where the marketing basically involved it was basically just an artist's impression of what this game would look like with good graphics. So it had a picture of someone sitting in this cockpit. It still had the flashing lights and the radar and stuff, but the stuff outside was much more realistic. And obviously the intention was to make you think, oh, one day games might look like this. And of course they look way better than that does now, but there's a pleasant sort of purity to this that remains nicely timeless. Can we make it to level 3? Let's find out. No! Ah. Curses. Still, I'm pretty sure that this is the furthest I've ever got in this game. Just because as a kid I was absolutely no good at that hyperspace segment whatsoever. And I'm still no good at it, as you can see, but at least I have actually got onto the second level now. Where are you? There we are. Missile! I was also very bad at dealing with those when I was a kid as well. I tended to just sort of freak out and fire blindly at them. Understandable, I'm sure you can agree. In later levels, if I remember rightly, I think those missiles actually start actively dodging your shots, which makes them a lot more difficult to hit. Oh dear, and they do stuff like that, sort of sneak around to your side or behind you. Makes them quite difficult to deal with. Oh no! Ooh, close. Alright, hyperspace time again. This game does seem to be pretty generous with the extra lives. As you've probably seen, I have been accumulating quite a few as we've gone through this. So it does want you to succeed. It's not like, oh, no, oh dear. It's not like some arcade games from the era that just actively hated you and wanted you to suffer. So this game wanted you to play it and to enjoy it for a little while. So it's pretty generous with how often you get the extra lives, but it is less than generous with... No. Less than generous with the hyperspace sequences. Rather unforgiving. But, you know, a lot of games aren't fun without a bit of challenge to them, so... And this game certainly provides that. Alright. I swear I'm going to be hearing that noise in my sleep tonight. Paul Woakes did actually do a sort of quasi-sequel... Whoops! Quasi-sequel to this on Atari ST called Backlash as well. If we ever get around to doing some Atari ST games, I'm sure we'll cover that at some point as well. But anyway, that is Encounter by Paul Woakes. Novagen Software, very much a name to watch in the Atari 8-bit era in particular, and a bit in the 16-bit era as well. So take a look at their stuff if you're not familiar with it already. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next time.